You guys, I taped this whole thing and then I replayed it to edit it and I realized that the microphone wasn't plugged in all the way, so no audio on that last one. We're gonna try this again. Hey, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to give you some tips for traveling to New Zealand that I wish I knew before coming over. You! Yeah, you! Are you thinking about taking a visit across the pond to New Zealand? Let me tell you, that is the best idea you've had in a very long time. I'm really excited for you. You deserve it. Seriously, if not now, when? Who knows? Maybe you'll enjoy yourself so much that you won't leave. That's kind of what happened to us. So because you guys have mentioned in the comments that you'd like to travel here to New Zealand, I thought you might benefit from my experience having lived here for the last few years. Yes, there are plenty of videos about the major things, but it's those little details that would have really helped me out had I been aware of them before coming over. I like to save time by being prepared so I have much more time to enjoy myself. And if you're like my partner, he's a double Sagittarius, you might think I'm a little crazy because he is definitely a let's just jump in and figure it out as we go type of guy. We balance each other out. And speaking of saving time, let's save some of yours right now and jump right in. So I have broken these little tips down into 3 categories that I thought were most pertinent. 1 being driving, 2 being places, and 3 being people. And starting us off in the topic of driving, because I most definitely recommend renting like a little caravan so you can explore the islands easily. Number 1 is that the roads here are not like they are in the States. Here, there are a lot of landslides, especially on the coastal roads. Now, I don't want to deter you from driving on them because the views are stunning. But it's just good to be aware that, for instance, in the US, I feel they make and repair roads to last quite a while longer. Now, it might take them a heck of a long time to get to and complete, especially potholes in the Midwest the size of the Grand Canyon that you could literally take your family on a vacation down into. I'm looking at you, Nebraska. Here, they do repair the roads more quickly, so there's hardly ever a traffic jam or a bad slowdown, but because it's so quick, it does seem like they just sprinkle down some kitty litter, pour over some sticky tack, top it off with some rocks, and call it a day. Just be aware of the falling rocks and shifty bits on your road trip. Number 2 is that on those windy roads, when you are going 100 kilometers an hour, will be bikers. I mean bicyclists. Yeah, just not the ones wearing leather, the ones with those cute little shorts. They seem to come out of nowhere when you are rounding the base of a mountain, so just be careful. One thing about New Zealand that is a bit of a bummer is that there's not a ton of bike paths around, so they must share the roads, and there are usually just the 2 lanes, so it's a bit dangerous. Number 3 is that New Zealand is chock full of bridges, but those bridges have 1 lane. Like, one car either goes this way or the other comes that way, not both. There are obviously signs before them. I mean, not like a sign with words, just a little picture with arrows. But the first time you see one, it's a little like, oh, right, good thing I actually did stop right here. I bring this up because New Zealand is the first place that I've ever seen one of those. The sign will give you an indication which side goes first by making the arrow slightly bigger for that side, but there's usually no traffic light or anything, so just keep your wits about you and you'll be golden. No one wants to play chicken on a bridge. Where did that even come from? Playing chicken? Number 4 is that New Zealand loves roundabouts. And more than that, they love traffic to be flowing, non-stop. Keep it moving. If you are going to turn or look like you're going to turn, they will swiftly go around you. They're not gonna wait. So make a solid decision and just stick with it. None of this ziggy-zaggy, last-minute decision, switch lanes up stuff. I bring this up mainly because there are just not a ton of roundabouts in the States. We are mainly a traffic light or stop sign land, so it's a good idea to brush up on how roundabouts work. I know, you're thinking, how hard can it be? It's just a circle. But I assure you, it's much more stressful in the moment, especially when they have multiple lanes on highways, and of course driving on the left side. And no, there's no driving test for Americans to drive here, so they'll just let you drive. So it's just good to not be caught off guard. The last thing I'd like to bring up about driving here, tip number 5, is that often lanes will just disappear after you cross an intersection. So you'll be next to another car, cross the road, and then your lane is gone. You're expected to very quickly merge with them like a zip, as it will say on the sign, which means car, that kind of thing. But that all happens in like 20 feet. So again, if you know it's coming, no big deal, but if it's happening right now for the first time, quite startling. You might get frazzled. There's no warning, just good to be aware of. Talking from experience. And lots of honking. The next category is places, with number 6 being that when you do book an Airbnb or hotel and it says it comes with a heat pump, that also means it has air conditioning. It sounds silly to Kiwis to not know that, I'm sure, but we don't have them in the States, and heat pump just sounds like a heating unit. They're actually units attached high up on the wall, and they have a remote, and you can put on heat or air conditioning or just a fan. It's kind of like what's in some of the hotels by the windows, like on the bottom. Also, speaking of places to stay the night, if you've traveled to other countries, you know that you'll need an outlet adapter for some of your electronics and gizmos to work. But over here, please be aware that some of them you cannot use, even with an adapter, especially items like hair dryers, straighteners, things like that. It's a whole different system that needs a transformer. So I would suggest buying new ones over here or just go natural. There's just no way around that one. My partner explained that items like your laptop or cell phone charger usually have a built-in transformer, so they should be just fine. Just check that they have the correct voltage first. And hey, if you're enjoying this video, you might enjoy the others I've done on New Zealand, like this one. Be sure to check it out at the end. Also, it would really help support me if you subscribe to my channel, and I can keep making videos. I come out with new ones like this every week. I'd love you to follow my journey to motherhood while living abroad. Thanks, guys. Number 8 is that, like many countries in New Zealand, tipping is not an expectation. Here, the minimum wage, I think it's up to like $22 an hour, so it's actually a livable wage. But what might be different here is that the waiter does not bring you the bill. After your meal, you always head up to the front of the restaurant to pay. Even if you forget that that's a thing and wait a really long time, they're not gonna come. Number 9 is that unless you're in one of the 3 bigger cities, establishments close early. Restaurants, places kind of like Walgreens, grocery stores, get there early. And for eating out, I would definitely suggest making a reservation. Too many times we assumed incorrectly and we're left getting takeout, like our anniversary. Maybe one of us should have thought ahead. And on your way to these establishments, walk on the left side. I know it's obvious that you'll be driving on the left side, but it just makes everything a bit easier if you also remember to walk on the left and avoid bumping into people. I'm talking to myself here. If you choose to do a little outdoor exploration, which I have to assume you will do, I mean, New Zealand is really a place of outdoor beauty, and getting to those little off the beaten path spots are so worth it. But to get there, you'll need to do a little hiking, or trekking as they call it. And when you do, you will most definitely need hiking boots. Great, Morgan. Hiking boots for going hiking. Cool tip, bro. But my real point is that you need to buy them before you come over here, for sure. Yes, most people know that really everything is more expensive over here, but there are definitely key items that are like much more expensive. And good shoes of really any sort is one of them. Now, number 12, no one tells you, and that is that a lot of destinations here in New Zealand are Maori names, the native people. I am not the person to ask because I seem to mispronounce every Maori city I've ever talked about with a Kiwi, but I can give you this one tip that saved us on our travels, and that is that if you see a place that starts with a WH, as in what, it does not make a W sound. It makes a F sound, like the soup. This may sound trivial, but there are lots of places that start with a WH, like hundreds, Whanganui, Whakatane, Whangarata, Whakatu. Now I better stop before I butcher more of them. Anyway, just keep that in mind and you won't sound so touristy. Speaking of being a tourist, let's move on to our last category of tips, and that is about the people. Number 13 is that the people of New Zealand are wonderful and specifically humble. You can be at a bar talking to a multi-millionaire and they won't say anything about it. They'd probably just focus on you and ask you questions. The point is, Americans can be a bit insecure. Is that fair? So we might come into a gathering, big swinging, and try to impress them with what we do or have or know. I'm just saying to you travelers that that will not make you friends over here. Since you're in another country, maybe try your hand at asking them about their culture and experiences. And maybe stay away from politics. Sadly, they hear enough about American politics on their radio and TV. And when you do chat with them, you might notice that because of our infiltrating media platforms, they seem to know a lot more about us than we do them. And I have to say, embarrassingly, this has been the case for all of of the expats we've met from various countries. When we visited New Zealand for the first time, we went woofing. Do you guys know about woofing? If you'd like, I can make a video on that. It's a great program to visit almost any country very inexpensively. I highly recommend it. Anyway, we met a girl from Belgium doing her gap year, and I asked what Belgium thought about Americans just because I think it's funny to hear the negative things or odd things people think about us. So she told us, and then she posed the question back like, oh, what do Americans think of Belgium? Oh my god, it was awful. The truth is, we don't really learn much about any other country, really. I mean, unless the US is involved in some historic war and we're painted quite victoriously, I'm gonna say we know very little about other countries, let alone little stereotypes we have about them. I think I ended up saying, oh, you guys have great chocolate and beer? It also doesn't help that their news is largely about the US. I'm not sure why. I would have thought that maybe it would be more Britain-based since they were a colony, but every time I've seen the news here, it's like 5 minutes of local news and it switches over, which is a little disappointing. We kind of wanted to escape some of that, so just something to be aware of. And lastly, number 15, something I didn't realize was that there is a relationship between New Zealand and Australia that is kind of similar to the one between the US and Canada. From what I have gathered, there is a slight rivalry, and Australians tend to be a bit louder, like to party, a little more in your face. Who does that sound like? I think it annoys them slightly, but in a sweet way, like an attention-seeking little brother. So when you travel over here, maybe keep that in mind. I always picture Kiwis watching our reality TV shows and what they must think, so when I meet them in person, I try not to represent all that. So again, I'm so excited for you. New Zealand is an amazing travel destination, especially for some rest, relaxation, get away from it all. I mean, if you like beaches and beauty and stuff. Do you guys want anything else addressed in these videos? I'm a wealth of answers and stories. Just let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe to my channel. I make new ones every single week. I would love for you to come on this journey with me. We'll see you next week. Bye! Which means actually after your meal, so worth it. Like the soup. I'm really excited for you. Is that good? Barkley liked it.